So I am calling to order the meeting of the Heritage Advisory Committee for Quinte West Municipality. And we do have an agenda, which I think everyone should have received, if I'm not mistaken. And it should be with the minutes from the last meeting, which was on November 6, 2023. And I think, sorry, I'm just trying to find mine. I think that the first thing we need to do is approve the minutes. Okay, so I've got mine. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is disclose the pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. And so just to clarify, that means that anyone who has a financial stake in any of these properties or designation needs to declare that now. Is that correct? Okay. I actually need to do that? Oh, okay. Does anyone need to do that?
Nope.
No, I don't. No.
Okay. I do need to do that. I am an owner of 46 Queen Street, which is on the list. I don't know if it's going to be brought up for discussion, but I guess I will excuse myself if it is brought up as on discussion for inclusion in the list. Okay, so no, I'm the only person with a pecuniary interest. So then our next step is to approve the agenda. And the agenda, approve the agenda for today. So the resolution is that the agenda for May 13th, 2024 be approved. So could I have a mover? Richard? And Doug seconds. So the agenda is approved. And next we need to approve the minutes. And the minutes are from November 6th, 2023. Could I have a mover for the minutes? Doug, and I will second because Richard wasn't in attendance that day. So. Oh, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks. Okay. All right. So next up we have public meetings. Nope, nothing. Public input? Presentations? Nothing. Delegations? Anyone delegating? Oh. Okay. Staff reports and other decision items. First up, we have, is it Davina? Is that? So we have Davina, and then we have, then we will have our discussion about potential listing of properties.
Through the chair, I want to provide an update on the ongoing heritage designation process for 62 County Road 5, the Wooler Schoolhouse. The initial notice of intention to designate was served on March 14th to all relevant parties, including the Ontario Heritage Trust, the property owner, and the local newspaper. This notice period is crucial as it allows for public input and comment on the proposed designation. I'm pleased to report that the 30-day notice period has concluded without any comments or objections from the public or other stakeholders. Currently, I am drafting the bylaw that will formally recognize the property at 62 County Road 5 as a designated heritage site under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Once the bylaw is drafted, it will be presented to the Council for final approval. We are looking to schedule this item on the agenda for June 5th's Council meeting, and assuming Council approves this bylaw, the property will be officially designated under provincial heritage status. This designation will enable City Council to enforce heritage property standards and restrict the demolition or removal of any building or structure of the property. The designation will ensure that the preservation of the property's cultural heritage significance and support future development applications through a collaborative conservative process. We will then proceed to the next steps, and this includes serving a final notice of designation to the same parties, the Ontario Heritage Trust, the property owner, and the newspaper. I will keep the committee informed in the process via email when the official designation process is complete. Thanks.
Okay, there we go. Now I'm on. So next up we have our committee discussion for potential listing of properties with correspondence. And so I think, Richard, I don't know, you weren't at the last meeting, but what we did was we were all given a package with reports on properties that are of significance and interest, but not on the list for heritage designation. And so we decided that our next step was to choose, I think we said 5, and as a group, and then take those to the next step of correspondence with the owners, and then, excuse me, and then those would go on to the list where they can reside for 5 years before we need to move them to actual heritage designation. Is that correct? Okay. So I have chosen a handful of properties that I think are significant. Doug, have you done that as well?
No, I'm not. I think my homework is
Okay.
isn't as good.
Okay.
It's highlighted here, and I'm not sure what, so I want to listen to yours. I'll just listen to your review, and then I'll connect it to this. I think it's there.
Okay. So what is the best way for us to go about this? I guess, Richard?
Yeah, so the actual criteria, the 5 criteria, do we have to sort of pick and mix and match from those, or is it based on the significance that we deem?
So, I mean, I think, this is just my personal opinion, not speaking as an official representative of the committee, that it should be a range of properties, you know, like commercial, residential, ecclesiastical, church properties. And then we were given a list of ways to measure that significance in terms of context, aesthetics, the architecture, whether or not it is distinctive, whether or not it represents a particular style, and then also in terms of community, whether the people who built it or owned it or live in it or lived in it made some sort of significant contribution to the community. So sort of those 3, and it could be, you know, any mixture of the 3. So the first one that I was interested in was, I kind of started with the commercial properties, and I have 2 that I think are particularly interesting. The first one is 69 Dundas Street West, and that is currently an insurance company, Wilkinson Insurance. And the reason that, I mean, I think it's just generally part of the history of Trenton and the downtown and the development. But I think the other thing that's interesting is it's very close to the post office, which is already a heritage designated site, and a similar style. And so I think it might be, we could just sort of extend. And it also looks like it's been really well preserved. And I think that, you know, that's a question that I have for the committee is, you know, I mean, I guess that goes back to our purpose, which Doug was asking me about earlier, is, you know, do we want to designate properties that are looking as though they might decay and, you know, sort of indicate to the owners that this process of decay needs to be arrested? Or do we choose properties that have been well preserved and can continue to be well preserved? So that's a discussion that I think we can have. So that's the first one. And I actually, do you want to?
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
Is that the one that was the Farmers Bank originally?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
okay, yeah.
And so it was, you know, originally Farmers Bank, Standard
Yep.
Bank, currently owned by Quinte Realty and houses the offices of Wilkinson and Company Chartered Accountants. So that's my first proposal. It's also part of the Gilmore Lumber Company legacy. That's a big part of the history of, you know, of Trenton. And then the next one, and this one I think is more controversial, is 34 to 46 Front Street. And that used to be the Sailor Hardware. And also I think there was a thrift store in there. That's I remember that. It's changed hands a number of times. Excuse me. But the Sailor family is obviously really important to the history of Trenton. Their name comes up a lot. It's a really interesting building. But here's the thing about that building is that it's currently under construction, and it's being turned into high-end condos, which is really interesting. So I don't know if that's something that we want to, you know, if we're a bit late to the game with that one because it's already being developed, and if we want to focus on buildings that have development potential but haven't been developed, and maybe sort of, I don't know if it's worth it to reach out to these owners, because I think the windows have already been changed, like stuff's already kind of gone by the wayside, and the likelihood of it being torn down seems really low because they are retrofitting it as we speak, so those are my first 2. I was wondering if anybody has any
They're good.
thoughts.
I mean, it does, we're gonna, sorry. The objective is to designate the building for a five-year waiting list, kind of. And so, no? Sorry.
So through you, Chair, the purpose of this is to see if there are any properties that we'd like to get listed. And so that's the first step in the process for becoming a designated heritage property. A property can stay on that list for 2 years. 2 years, and if it doesn't get designated within that 2-year period, then it drops off and we cannot look at it again for another 5 years. That's where 5 years comes in.
My apologies, I was confused about that. So so the significance of that, from my understanding then, is that if we put it on the list and we don't do anything with it within 2 years, it's kind of lost to us for quite a while. So we need to be very sure that we want to do this. But it's also quite possible that some things might go on the list and drop off, right? Like that we can designate, not, the word designate is not the appropriate term, but we can choose a certain number of buildings, but then they may not make it onto the register. Or do we want to make sure that anything that goes onto that list gets designated?
Because once the research gets done, then it's not considered of cultural heritage value enough to be designated. Is that your thought? I would say possibly, but then I would say, because we have such limited resources, let's try and make sure we're picking a property or properties that really do have those cultural heritage values, because there is a significant amount of work that goes into it. So we wouldn't want to start down a road on a particular property that we're just like, yeah, that might be nice to designate, but then it doesn't have the value that is being required under the new Ontario Heritage Act. So we've already wasted that time and the resources and that. So I wouldn't recommend that. I'd say we try and pick something that is really, really a standout heritage property.
Okay, thank you. I'm wondering if it might be a good idea with this particular meeting to make a list and then have maybe a round-robin email vote with the committee, rather than putting pressure on to decide today. I think that might be a proposal, to put maybe 5 or between 5 and 10 on a round-robin email and then vote that way. What does everybody think about that?
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. Very good, yep.
Okay.
To be able to review it.
Exactly. Okay, so is everybody, should we vote on each one as we propose them? Yes. Can I move that we add 69 Dundas Street West to the round-robin vote on properties to be moved onto the list?
I agree with that. Yeah.
Okay. Everyone in favor?
In
Yes.
favor.
Thank you.
There's the beginning.
Does anyone else have a proposal they'd like to make at this point?
Yeah, if I may. So under the commercial section, I've got 94 King Street. So that was Canterbury Hall, that Gothic style. I think it's the oldest standing church in Trenton, so just the significance of that alone caught my eye.
That would have been my choice, too.
Is that right?
Me as well. That's on my list.
Can I jump in there for a second, though? Okay, so at your meeting in November, we agreed to look at it in terms of a priority list. And there were certain criteria that we were looking at. So any that were churches or publicly owned were farther down on the priority list. So we're trying to aim at privately owned properties right now, because likely a church is not going to get torn down.
I think.
Could get converted, I know you're
Yeah.
going to say that. It
If
could.
I'm not mistaken, I think that building is privately owned.
Yeah.
I think it was severed from the church.
Okay.
And I could be wrong about that, but I believe it is a private residence
Okay.
/ commercial
Okay,
property.
and you can keep it on then, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, and that's a good point, because I also had St. George's Church, but we'll leave that off because that is still, that's a mosque now. Is that a mosque?
beside it
I
there?
think so.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yes, it
okay.
is.
great.
Well, it's another religion for sure.
Doug, did you have a,
I need a few
Proposal?
minutes.
Okay.
I had Canterbury on my list for sure. I left that on, sorry.
I have one more, 43 Queen Street. This is the residential, in the residential section. It is, and I mean, maybe I have a conflict of interest because it's actually across the street from me. No? Okay. So this is a very beautiful old house. It's quite a remarkable example of, it says here, late Italianate architectural style. And it is beautiful, and it also is becoming a little decrepit. I think it's currently divided into apartments. I think that one of the points in the description of the significance that struck me was that its proximity to the town center, and that it's a representation of the development of Trenton, moving from the commercial center outward, and some of the sort of, movers and shakers of Trenton's commercial community building their big houses along. I thought that was quite interesting. So I think it represents not just beautiful architecture, but also, it has significance in terms of the growth of Trenton as well. Does
I had
anyone
that
have
one
any
on my
comment?
list as well, 43 Queen, yep. Yeah. I also had, if I could, 15 Marmora Street. That was the one that had the, I guess you can call it the unique cistern system in the second floor, the holding, the water system that they had developed. So that just, again, just a little bit unique.
Is it 15 or 16?
15.
15.
Yeah, 15.
Oh, there it is, I see. Okay, interesting. That sounds good to me. Okay, so let's back up and let's vote on 43 Queen Street. All in favor? Oh, I move, and someone said, Doug seconds. Okay, and we're all in favor? And then let's vote on, so 15 Memorial Street, so the main, so it's got a particular water system. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that? Do you know a lot about this particular subject, or?
Not really, other than just the write-up of it being on the second floor and using it for, it seemed to be the most advanced in the period that it was built.
Okay.
So that just seemed to be of interest.
Okay. Okay, does someone want to move that we add 15? Am I saying Marmora wrong? Marmora? Marmora?
I can move if you'd like,
and-
15 Marmora.
All in
If you have
favor?
it.
Okay, that's passed. Okay, so we are at 4 now? 5?
This will be 5, I think.
Okay,
Oh, we're at 4.
okay.
Yeah. I am trying to find Gilmore's house on Dundas Street, and I can't find it. It was in this list. Gilmore's house at the top of Dundas Street there?
Is that Service Ontario now? Is that that was their house there,
I think,
I believe. So it's already listed. It's already listed.
these designated properties that are listed in the very first part of the package, are they on the 2-year wait list now? Sorry,
Yeah, no, they're fully on the provincial designated as a heritage site.
I'm assuming then the owners know all this information?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they would have to go through a process if they did want to remove their designation, but just as long as there's no oppositions or any problems with the property owner, it stays on the list. Yeah.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, there was nothing on the list except for the Wooler Schoolhouse when we started. The waiting list or the yeah,
Candidate sites.
Yes.
That's what we're choosing now, sort of candidate sites?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I thought that was on here. I'm all screwed up. It wasn't, I guess.
Well, can we hold off and Doug can find it?
No.
And then add it to the list at a later time, add it to the email
Oh,
list?
yeah, that's fine.
Okay, and I'm happy to put together the email and send it around, or is that something you would do, or is that something, I can do that? Okay, great. Okay, so I think our original plan was to stop at 5. Oh, I think our original plan was to stop at 5, so if Doug finds the Gilmore House that he's interested in and adds that to the email, I think
not
we
on
can, you can do it later, though, you can do it
Yeah.
after the
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah.
So I think that's it for that part of the process. So,
37.
next up,
So, Madam Chair, if I could.
Yes.
So what exactly are you doing with these 5? Are you having internal discussions or?
yes.
Yes?
So the next phase is I'm going to put them in a list and send it around by email. And we are going to vote round robin by email, I don't know if that's the correct phrase, and decide if these are the 5 we want, or if we want to add some, just so that we don't make a rushed decision. And I think Doug Rapley would like also to add another property that he can't find the listing for right now. So we're going to, I guess, put it ahead to further discussion among the committee.
Okay. And you'll include Bill on that
Yes.
so that we can find out what Bill thought of the list?
Yes.
So then you'll be voting on that to bring it down to maybe 1 or 2 or 3?
Oh, okay, is that your recommendation?
Well, so Davina has some more to tell you as a committee about sort of resourcing and what the next steps would be and sort of
Okay.
a costing, estimates of cost. So that might,
Yes.
yeah, bring you down from 5 to 1 or 2.
Absolutely. If that is your recommendation, then I think definitely we would take that. Doug?
I think the 4 is probably adequate then, based on that we might hear something
Okay.
that changes that idea or whatever, but I think that's a lot to work with now.
So we will proceed with the discussion on the 4, and in a private meeting of the committee, come up with 2 or 3, and then forward those to you. That's our next steps. Okay, thank you. Okay, and I think that is it, unless there's further discussion.
Yeah, sorry,
on-
madam, I can continue speaking on the draft letter.
Oh, that was the
and-
next
yeah.
thing, was communication with the owners. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. Through the chair, I created a draft letter to go to properties that the committee deems a potential site to list on our municipal heritage register as requested in our last meeting on November 6, 2023. In the letter, I ensured to highlight the benefits of designation and provided an opportunity for the residents to choose 3 options. The first being to let us know that they are interested in learning more about the process. Second is that they are ready to proceed with the listing and would like additional details on the next steps. And third being not interested in having their property included on the municipal heritage register. At the end of the letter, I provided the information needed to complete the listing of a property on the municipal register, which brings me to a subject that is in need for discussion within the committee. The requirement of letter C on the last page, which is, and I quote, "a statement explaining the cultural heritage value or interest of the property and description of the heritage attributes of the property," requires discussion discussion on associated work and cost of this requirement. To be clear, a statement of cultural heritage value for a municipal register would not need a full cultural heritage resources assessment, although we'll need committee and staff hour time and a cost if it requires further research not available in our current records. Recent changes to regulation will eventually lead us to the process that each of these sites will need to go through, as Ontario Regulation 9-06 specifies the criteria that properties must meet to qualify for Part 4 designation and receive the provincial recognition. Doing a brief look at our neighboring municipalities and other ones in Ontario, a cultural heritage resource assessment for an individual property that will eventually need to within 2 years will cost us an average of $5,000 and approximately 60 hours of work. So if we're looking at studying 5 properties, that would cost us an estimate of $25,000 and 300 hours of work. So as of now, we are asking the committee to discuss who might be responsible for that cost and work in putting together the cultural and heritage statement. So specifically for the municipal register, in what capacity is the landowner involved, and would there be a cost to them? And will this work be done by the committee, or would we be looking into maybe hiring a consultant for it? Currently, the Heritage Committee does not have a budget, as confirmed by our, as our clerk's office.
Okay, so to clarify, you're asking us today to decide if, when this work goes forward, who will be conducting the work? Whether,
Just a discussion there, yeah.
okay, so not, we don't need to decide that?
No.
That's just, okay,
Yeah,
thank
just
you.
something in the thoughts.
Thank you. Okay, so the options are for city staff to conduct it, or to hire a consultant, or for a member of the committee to conduct the research? Are those the 3 primary options?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Open for discussion, any?
Through you, Madam Chair. The landowner cost that you mentioned, Davina, is that a possibility? Like, or what are we looking at there?
That would depend on the owner themselves, if they're willing to kind of put in the money and the effort to go through the process, although ultimately we're not able to kind of force them through the process. So that cost would be dependent on the owner and their interest in going through the designation process.
So are you saying the owner has to voluntarily assume that cost?
Yes, yeah.
What happens if the owner indicates that they strongly oppose this action?
Then we pick another property.
We stop.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
Interesting.
There isn't really much for us to push through, yeah.
So it requires their collaboration and
Yes.
consent.
Yeah,
Good to know.
yeah.
Can I just ask another question, maybe semantics, but the word strongly oppose this action, is that really, like, the homeowner can just oppose it, right? They don't have to, quote, strongly oppose it?
Yes, yeah, I could take that word. I just wanted to, some property owners may not want to ever be considered again, just as long as it's kind of in our listed candidates. It could be a property that we could go back to in the future. But if it's something that they're not willing to do, we can kind of just take them off the list, so we're not kind of going back and forth with a property owner, yeah.
Okay.
Are there resources available in the budget somewhere?
I don't think so. If I know there is some, we could probably go to council and see if there is money available, but as of right now, there is not.
Are there fundraising opportunities, or is this something that needs to come out of the budget?
So fundraising on behalf of you as a committee, I mean, that's something up to you. If you guys are entertaining that idea, that we can take that back to the clerk's department, make sure that we would be on, the right path for that. Fundraising opportunities from the landowner, sure, they could do their own fundraising, they can go and look for grants at various levels of government. I'm sure there are other things out there. And as Davina said, we could also go to council if there was one particular property that we really wanted to try and list, go to council and see if there is a pot of money that we might be able to draw from for doing that assessment.
I would assume, Mr. Chair, that the properties we picked, that the number one property would be something we're going to try and work with right away, correct? I'm just trying to understand. So prioritizing 4 really becomes 1. Am I hearing that? Or
It
not
could-
even 1?
It could be, yeah, but as Davina said, we're gonna send this letter out to the 4 or 5 that you pick. We might get 4 people coming back and saying, yeah, I don't want my property designated. Now, I say that we should have their consent. We don't have to under the Ontario Heritage Act. We can move forward. We do not have to have their blessing for it. But I would say it will make the process easier if we do. But so then we might only have 1, or you may send out the letter and you may have 5 people say, yes, we want our heritage, our building designated heritage. So then we need to kind of hone it down. I think the process will be that we'll need to bring those people in to talk to you as a committee. Perhaps Bill will have a conversation with them, talk to them, to walk them through what the process is and what it will mean to their property if we do go forward with a designation.
So perhaps what we should do is have a couple of tiers, have like first tier, 1 or 2, second tier, maybe, and then up to 5, and then only move to those, like for our own purposes, not officially on the list. Does that make sense? So we keep an unofficial list of properties that are going onto the real list. Because once they go onto the real list, there's only 2 years to get this done. And so you said the cost would be approximately $25,000 per property.
No, for the 5 properties. So it's an
okay.
average of 5,000
Oh, okay,
per
That's
site.
a little less
Yeah.
daunting. Okay, great. Well, I actually have a proposal, and I'm curious to hear what the committee thinks and also the staff think. But I have a background in history and research, and I would be willing to help. I would be willing to put in some hours if the committee is in favor of that. My background is in history, and I familiar with the process and would be willing to help. So that could bring the cost down somewhat. Do we need to move that, or is that's just noted that I would be willing to help? Okay. So next, we have, is that everything for that item? Thank you. We have new other business. We have Davina again with the learning opportunity. Bert Duclos.
Through the chair, in collaboration with the City of Brighton and Trent Hills, there will be a cultural heritage conservation orientation session with Bert Duclos, who runs Heritage Services. The event is hosted by the municipality of Brighton and will be held in the Owen Gibb Community Center at 75 Elizabeth Street on July 11th, 2024 from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I do have some flyers here, and I'll pass that along after this meeting. But the session is titled Heritage Conservation in Ontario, Fundamentals for Municipal Heritage Committees, and we'll go over three main presentations. The first one being what is cultural heritage values? So that will explore the determination of cultural heritage value in order to lay the foundation for better understanding. Municipal heritage committees and establishing and sustaining an effective municipal heritage committee. That will delve into the statutory and non-statutory roles of municipal heritage committees and best practices. And the third one is inventory evaluation and designation, from survey to protection. So this will examine the steps and processes in determining the cultural value of properties and how they lead to objective and knowledgeable advice to support effective decisions on the use of the appropriate legislative tools that were introduced. If you know you are able to make it, please let me know after this meeting or during after this talk, and I can take that down. And if you do need more time, please feel free to let me know through email or by phone by June 28th, 2024, as the deadline to provide Bert with numbers is July 3rd. I will be sending out an email with all this information after this session, so it is in your emails and in your record. We do encourage you all to attend, as it will be a beneficial session to learn more about how we can be more proactive, collaborative, and effective in the work that we do, especially as development increases, the protection of our heritage sites in our communities become more important. Kelly and I are confirmed to be there, so I would encourage all of you to go.
Thank you, Davina. I wanted to clarify something. So this document that was completed with the background on all of these properties, if there is a property that's not, we're not restricted to this, right? So if there is a property that someone thinks is very valuable that doesn't happen to be in here, I think we can look at that as well, so we can add that. So if the Gilmore property is not in here for some reason, Doug, you can propose it and we can talk about it. Okay. Yes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yeah, I think I mentioned this at maybe the last meeting, at that list that you all have of 50 or so properties came from Trenton's LACAC community. Murray and Sydney and Frankfurt did not have their own, so there might be properties throughout Quinte West that aren't included in that list, as you say, that if you guys are aware of it, you feel strongly about it, and you want to add it to your list of considerations, certainly you're totally welcome for that. You guys are the ones that are out in the community and have that knowledge.
Thank you. I had forgotten that. Davina.
What I would maybe suggest, I think we did bring this up in our last meeting, but maybe putting out a survey to see what maybe the public may have a property that they would be willing to kind of designate if it's not on our list. We could set that up on our website through communications. That way we would just have all the data to provide to you.
That would be wonderful. Thank you. So I guess we can communicate about that and you'll let us know when that's done. And so then we should hold off on making this final decision until we have more data from that survey. Yes?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. It would just be like a general survey,
Sure.
just something if there were any properties that would be willing.
And who would it go to? What is the mailing list for that?
No, there would be no mailing list. It would just kind of be on our website.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
So it would be
yeah.
like people would have to volunteer to take it. Got it.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Thanks. Okay, I think that's everything. Is there any other business that was not discussed? Anything else that needs to come up? It's very efficient. Okay. I guess is there anything we need to know before I adjourn? Can I move that we adjourn? Yeah, I move that we adjourn the meeting at, it's 3:43 PM. Seconder? Richard seconds, thank you. We are adjourned.